This is a $250 phone. The real question is it any good? So OUKITEL sent me this phone to check out. They didn't pay me, they just sent me the phone and said, hey, make a video about it. So that's what we're doing right now. Now, to be honest, I'm not a phone reviewer guy. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about nanometers in the chipset or whether UFS storage is technically faster than an NVMe drive in sequential reads. No, this is a $250 phone. The real question is it any good? First off, this thing looks and feels premium. It really leans into that iPhone look. It's thin, it's light, it has a nice metal frame to it. Not quite flagship level materials, but for a budget phone, it feels way more expensive than it actually is. Personally, I'm not a fan of Androids that are made to look like iPhones. Like, if you want an iPhone, just buy an iPhone. But this phone has a 6.7-inch AMOLED display on it, and it's really one of the best features on this phone. At this price point, AMOLED typically isn't common. You're usually stuck with LCD. It's bright, colors pop, and the blacks are super deep. Another surprise, it comes with a case and screen protector already applied straight out of the box. Now, it's no suit of armor, but it's a nice touch from OUKITEL. A lot of budget phones don't include extras like this right out of the box. But now let's get to what's inside. So powering this phone is a MediaTek Helio G99 processor. That's 8 cores at 6 nanometers. Now 6 nanometers is important because that means better power efficiency. And for a budget phone, this actually performs really well. What's interesting is the RAM situation in this thing. It has 8 gigs of physical RAM, but it can dynamically allocate up to 16 gigs of virtual RAM using the internal storage. So that means a total of 24 gigs of available RAM. That's pretty wild for a budget phone, but more RAM means more multitasking, and it can keep apps open in the background without slowing it down. So really for everyday use, things like web browsing, social media, you're not going to experience those kind of like laggy slowdowns you would other entry-level phones at this price point. All right, let's talk gaming, because I bet a lot of people want to know, can this actually play games? Well, I'm not a big gamer, so maybe I'm not the best to judge this, but playing some Need for Speed and Among Us seems snappy and not laggy a bit. One thing to keep in mind that I noticed, it does get warm after extended play. Not like overheating, but definitely noticeable around that camera bump. Now, battery life and charging. Let's talk about the battery life on this thing, which is actually one of its great features. It's a 5150 milliamp hour battery, which means you can easily get a couple days out of it without charge on light use. Moderate, you'll definitely make it a full day, but when it comes to heavy use like gaming, streaming, if you're using it for a GPS, you'll probably need to hit the charging port at least once throughout the day. And talking about charging port, it has 18 watts of fast charging. I wouldn't really call that fast, but I've seen worse, I guess, especially on phones of this budget. Reverse charging through USB-C is available on this, which means you can kind of use it like a power bank to power other devices. There's no wireless charging on this, but I wouldn't expect it on a phone of this budget. So battery life's a win. What about storage or expansion? So as far as internal storage, you get 256 gigs out of the box. That's already a solid amount for a budget phone for sure, but it does have expandable storage as well. So if you use one of those like micro SIM cards, then you can also slide a micro SD card on that same SIM holder, and you can expand up to 2 terabytes. That's a pretty big deal for anyone who wants to store tons of photos or videos and offline media on your device. Speaking of photos and video, let's be real, cameras on budget phones are usually garbage. This camera's main camera is a 50 megapixel, which in good lighting is fine. It looks great. And especially on this screen, it makes those images really pop.
So this is the camera in daylight, selfie cam again. It's pretty crisp, and the phone is pretty reactive, like it auto brightened my face pretty well. So that's not too bad. Let's see what the front camera does. So again, this is the front camera, and the audio on this is just from the phone itself. I don't have any external mics. It's kind of cool that this thing is dirty as fuck, but that one's pretty clean. The video, I don't know, it's almost kind of jittery. Like it's super clean, but it is really jittery.
The front-facing camera, like the selfie camera, is only 16 megapixel, which is fine for video calls and stuff, but for selfies or those type of images, Now, low light performance is potato vision, really. Lots of noise, and it struggles with shadows. One interesting thing though, it supports 4K video recording at 30 frames, which is cool on paper, but keep in mind, stabilization on this is not good at all. And that sensor, like I said, struggles in low light. Here's one big thing that you need to know before buying this phone. This phone is limited to 4G LTE. There's no 5G support in it. So if you're in an area where 5G coverage is great, this might be a deal breaker, but if you don't care about 5G, 4G LTE speeds are just fine for most everyday things. Some nice to haves on here are the face unlock. Pretty quick. Does have dual SIM support, so if you're a traveler or you have like work phone and a personal phone, you can take the SIM out of one and put it in the other kind of thing. And it looks like an iPhone if you're into that kind of thing. Hey there, future Alex here, editing the video and realize I completely forgot to mention why I think this thing is so snappy. Honestly, it's running a full Android 14 OS on it. Oh, ha! Completely forgot you could do that. If you click the build number a bunch of times, eventually it'll ask you to put your PIN number in, and it puts you into developer mode. So yeah, that's a thing I forgot happens. We can see here, this is Android 14. It didn't really come with any bloatware. Usually, like, especially if you get a Verizon phone, you've got a bunch of Verizon crap on it. And then of course, all the Google stuff that comes with it. My daily driver is a Samsung, so it's got a bunch of Samsung bloatware on there as well. There's a mirror, so you can see yourself. Anyway, that's funny. From what I can tell, it's stock or pretty damn close to it. Yeah, so I really just wanted to jump in here and interject that is, I think, one of the reasons that this thing does feel so snappy. Yeah, it's nice that it has a bunch of RAM on it too, but it really helps when you don't have a bunch of crappy apps just dragging your phone down. So at the end of the day, who is this phone for? If you want a snappy, budget-friendly Android phone that looks like an iPhone, or you need dual SIM support and expandable storage, and mostly what you do is browse the web, watch videos, or play games, sure, not a bad phone. But if you're looking for a phone with a great camera, especially that works in low light, or you need good audio for calls or making videos or speakerphones, or if you absolutely need 5G connectivity, this is not the phone for you. But realistically, for a $250 phone, it's a solid budget phone with good performance and a beautiful display. Oh, and I think right now, at the time of recording, they have this phone on sale. So the $250 phone is closer to like $200. Not sure how long that'll last. That does make it a little bit of an easier decision if you're looking for that budget-friendly device. Would I use this as my daily driver? No, absolutely not. But would I recommend it as a budget phone for someone who just needs something reliable and has a really good display? Yeah, for the price point, it's not bad. What do you think? Would you buy this phone? Let me know in the comments.